Practice session underway for the USF Pro 2000 series here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Thank you for joining us. We apologize for the delay here in getting started with the commentary. Rod Howden, the voice of the USF Pro Championships, joins me as always to talk about these drivers who are on their way up the ladder, hoping one day to make it to the NTT IndyCar Series, and they are out on track. First practice session of the weekend, always exciting for these young drivers.
Yeah, Todd, thank you so much. Certainly appreciate it. So, folks, what you're seeing on the racetrack here, those of you maybe tuned in from home, was what was normally called the Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires. Again, this was what was called the Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires. It is now the USF Pro Championships, presented by Cooper Tires. A little rebranding here for the 2023 season, but indeed, as Todd said, underway for the first session of this new campaign. And again, looking forward so much to diving into the schedule we have for this year. Really exciting lineup of drivers on the racetrack right now. USF Pro 2000, formerly known as the Indy Pro 2000 category, and you can expect us to make the mistake of calling it the old name several times throughout the weekend. Obviously, from years of calling it the Road to Indy, it's kind of ingrained in all of our heads. But the new USF Pro Championships, presented by Cooper Tires on the racetrack. Watching the drivers here at the very top level of what our program is now. The very start of this is now the USF Junior Series, which launched last year, back for its second season here in 2023 with a brand new race car, the Tatis JR23. That series getting underway in a couple of weeks' time at Sebring International Raceway. But here, of course, as a part of the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, we have drivers at USF 2000 and USF Pro 2000. From here, drivers will try to follow in the footsteps of Louis Foster, who won the championship last year in USF Pro 2000 and has since moved to Andretti Autosport in the Indy Next Series, another program with rebranding for 2023. Out on the racetrack right now, Kiko Porto is the fastest driver, former USF 2000 champion for D-Force Racing, the number 12, the Brazilian leading the way with a 111.556. Reese Usajima, an American who's been racing quite a bit over in Europe over the last number of years, coming back here to the U.S. Excited to have him here with us. Michael D'Orlando currently in the third spot. He is your reigning USF 2000 championship and, of course, has the USF Pro Championships livery, the scholarship livery on the car. Jack William Miller rounding out the top five. So underway, it's been an interesting day, obviously, with some issues to start things off. So getting pushed Well, I guess we're back there. We're having some issues, ladies and gentlemen, with power here trackside. So again, Rob Howden alongside Todd Lewis. We're giving you a little bit of play-by-play here for the first session of the 2023 season for the USF Pro Championships. Kiko Porto still on the top there. For those of you watching on the USF Pro Championships app or on USFPro2000.com, we say hello to you. It is quite windy here today, trackside. Gorgeous day otherwise, 78 degrees. But Todd, when we're up here in the tower, the wind blowing off the bay, it's pretty windy, but comfortable temperatures.
Beautiful temperatures, perfect for those of us coming to attend the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg presented by RP Funding. But how much are these drivers feeling this breeze out on track with the aerodynamics of that car, and how severely are they going to be affected?
It all depends, of course, what the weather's going to be like and the wind is like trackside. But you can see the flags around here are literally getting ripped around. The wind is incredibly high. It looks like it's going to be in their face when they're coming down into the hairpin, which is the final corner here at the racetrack. Kind of a side wind as they come down the straightaway, but there are obviously the fencing and a lot of the motorhomes. I'm not sure they're feeling that much on the front straightaway. It's a question that I'll ask most definitely when I get back to the paddock.
You mentioned that Kiko Porto is up on top of the timesheets, a 1:10.9 right now. First driver under the 1:11 mark. Second year in the USF Pro 2000 series. You've said many times that drivers come in, it takes them a little time to get accustomed to the next level, and I think we're seeing Kiko Porto, who has matured through the latter steps and now showing early on that he's got the handle on this.
And for Kiko, you look back at his career, he ran that first year of USF 2000, came back and won the championship the second year with G-Force Racing, got his feet wet in USF Pro 2000 last year, and now has come out so much confidence, feeling very comfortable. G-Force Racing, as we know, a very strong team. And Porto, who's got a solid teammate in Bajoy Garg over there as well, looking good with a 1:10.909. And for any driver drawing first blood, right, being that first guy on the top of the charts after the first practice session, that just gives you so much confidence rolling through the remainder of the weekend.
That's right. You want to put the quick time in just to understand that you're comfortable in the car, you understand what you've been doing, and this is a lot of track time that these drivers will have received this week as well, because prior to this weekend in St. Pete, they had a testing session at St. Petersburg, or excuse me, in Sebring.
Yeah, we were at Sebring on Monday and Tuesday. USF Juniors testing on Monday, USF 2000 testing on Tuesday, and the USF Pro 2000 drivers splitting on both Monday and Tuesday. Drivers that were quick there, one of them currently in the second spot, Liram Zendelli. Driver is running under the Albanian flag for TJ Speed. F3 and F2 experience for young Zendelli, a very impressive driver. Had a chance to meet him over the last couple of days. They're a big fan already. Currently third spot is Francesco Pizzi out of Mexico in number 55 for TJ Speed. Currently sitting in second and third. Risu Shijima, the American from right now Scottsdale, Arizona, but did a lot of racing overseas over the last couple of years. Ushijima now into the fifth spot as the Swede Joel Grandforce for Exclusive Autosport has worked his way up into the top five as well.
Amazing when you talk about the nationalities of drivers that find their way into the USF Pro 2000 series, that this draws attention from drivers around the world, whether it's from Canada, whether it's from Mexico, whether it's from Europe. You get attention, and this is the place to be. It has proven to be a destination for drivers trying to further their careers.
Yeah, and I think success last year for Louis Foster, who came over from the GB3 series. There's guys that are there saying, okay, I run GB3. You get a lot of track time in GB3, but the move from there is potentially to go in to the FIA Formula 3 category. That's almost $2 million for a top team, right? And the teams are, there isn't the equality that we have over here in the USF Pro Championship, so really any team can win a race. Over there, if you don't have the money, you're not with the top team, you're probably not going to win. So Louis Foster refocusing his career here on the U.S. Same thing for Joel Grandforce right now, for Liram Zendelli, for Risu Shijima. They're all looking to come over here and now say, you know what, maybe F1's not attainable, but they can get to the NTT IndyCar Series, and I know how good it is over in the U.S. with this program.
Michael D'Orlando has jumped up to the third spot on the timesheets, a 1:11.2, wearing that number one as the champion of the USF 2000 series from the previous year.
Yeah, what a race that was last year. You think about the two drivers from Pabst Racing that were in the fight as well, and Miles Rowe and Jace Denmark. The three of them came down for the championship fight at Portland on Labor Day weekend. Rowe and Denmark ended up getting together. We had a bunch of contact, and somehow D'Orlando, who really was probably an outside, had an outside shot at the championship, came away with the title and that scholarship to move up to the USF Pro 2000 category. He's running with Turn 3 Motorsports this year with that livery, the scholarship livery, and is really taking to this car immediately. It's not like he's further back. He really likes this car and looked really good in testing as well.
Got a chance to meet those guys last night at the party in the park. A number of them there from Turn 3 Motorsports. They are competitive, but it is a friendly competition, if you will. They want the team to do well. They want everyone to succeed. But of course, it's the individual that wants to be on the top step of the podium.
Indeed, being told that potentially a driver's got into the wall in turn number 8. That would be the number 32 machine of Christian Weir. And indeed, red flag flying. So we got a bunch of time in here. There's really only about 4 minutes to go. 21 minutes of green flag racing, or green flag time on the track for the drivers here at USF Pro 2000. And I'm expecting that will bring out the checkered flag as well, although I don't know whether they can get it cleaned up enough, but that is Christian Weir in the TJ Speed number 32 off track into the wall, potentially in turn number 8. So as they roll into pit lane, let's have a look at your top 10. Kiko Porto, the only driver able to get below the 111 mark, a 110.900 for Kiko Porto, and indeed expecting to see a checker at start finish. That'll be it for the session. Indeed, that's it. 21 minutes of green time. And solid for the drivers out there. Really, that opening session, Todd, you're starting the season again. You're coming to this track, which is so tough. It's narrow. It's the concrete canyon. You can't make any mistakes. It's so unforgiving. It's just about getting through this session and getting a feel for the racetrack.
If you get into trouble in an early session in a weekend like this, where you have practice and qualifying and multiple races, you find it sets you back for the whole weekend. You lose the track time, but then the team has to go to work to make the repairs, get the car ready, and then you're playing catch up for the rest of the weekend. You want to make sure that everything is right. You want to make sure that you have it set up the way you did prior to whatever incident or contact you might have sustained. So now the team's going to have to work extra hard during this break.
That's it. They got to go to work on that car for Christian Weir. But here is your top 10. Kiko Porto, as I said, a 110.909 fast driver in this opening session. So the Brazilian will be very happy, as will T-Force Racing. Liram Zendelli up now into the second spot. Michael D'Orlando in third, Miles Rowe fourth, and Francesco Pizzi in fifth. So, 4 different teams in the top 5. D4th, TJ Speed, Pabst Racing up there as well, and Turn 3 Motorsport, as I had said. Then we've got Christian Brooks in the 6th spot, Jordan Missig for Pabst Racing in 7th, Joel Grandforth for Exclusive Autosport up into 8th, Reese Ushijima in 9th, and Christian Weir, the driver who brought out that red flag, in the 10th spot. Jace Denmark 11th, Jonathan Brown in 12th, Salvador de Alba 13th, Yuvan Sundaramurthy in 14th, Jack William Miller in 15th, Pajoy Garg 16th, Nick Monteiro for Neotech, a brand new team to the series, in 17th spot, Ricardo Escoto in 18th, Jackson Lee and Lindsey Brewer round out the 20 drivers in the field, 2.7 seconds separating first all the way back to 20th. And with 20 drivers in the field, Todd, the biggest USF Pro 2000 category we've had since 2014. This program really is dialed in since we brought that new car out, the IP22, and we're looking very good. 21 drivers in USF 2000, 20 in USF Pro 2000.
Once again, shows the strength and the desirability to be in this program as part of trying to climb the ladder, move your way up to ultimately the NTT IndyCar Series. The success has been proven in the past through years. Drivers graduate from one level to the next and are able to move their careers forward.
And you're going to see a huge field, the biggest we've had in many years in the Indy Next category as well, because of the drivers that we've been able to graduate out of USF Pro 2000. 5 or 6 drivers moving out of that category up into Indy Next. 19 drivers there, which is super exciting. And of course, to see our drivers here in USF Pro 2000 with 20, that is absolutely fantastic. So essentially, we'll have back-to-back sessions here, folks, for the drivers here in this USF Pro Championships. Pro 2000 done. And now we'll now roll out the drivers in USF 2000. They'll be on track momentarily for their opening practice session of the weekend.
Lots to do here at the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, presented by RP Funding. Don't forget the NTT IndyCar Series autograph session coming up at 12:30 this afternoon. The location has shifted this year. It is outside the Mahaffey Theater. Bigger, more open space. We want to accommodate as many fans as we possibly can. All autograph sessions, those for the USF 2000 Series, USF Pro 2000 Series, and others will also also take place outside the Mahaffey Theater throughout the weekend. It is the NTT IndyCar Series that is out there later on this afternoon at 12:30, of course. And don't forget to make sure you're following the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg presented by RP Funding on all the social media channels. It's at GP St. Pete on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Tag your Instagram stories all week long. You'll be featured at GP Story as well. Lots more to come. A quick break, and then we'll get you set for USF 2000 and their first practice session of the weekend.
USF Juniors champion Mac Clark. He's never driven here. The drivers in the USF Pro 2000, I stopped myself at least. The USF Pro 2000 category have either been here before or maybe more experienced running different circuits. So what I find that could be interesting is whether or not some of the teams that have drivers both in the USF Pro 2000 category and the USF 2000 category could maybe have talked to their young drivers. Hey, listen, this is what the wind was doing. Into this particular part of the racetrack, the wind was doing this with the car. Sometimes it's pushing from behind, sometimes it's pushing right into your face. So we'll see if the drivers are able to handle this.
Green flag conditions out on track. Practice session is underway for the USF 2000 series. Let's talk about as well, this used to be the first step in the ladder of the USF championships. Now, last year, the USF Juniors was added as another entry level for drivers, moving up from karts most often, trying to get into open wheel racing.
Yeah, this iteration of USF 2000 actually started back in 2010, and you'll know a lot of the names if you're an IndyCar fan. It was Spencer Pigot, it was Zach Veach, it was Sage Karam. We had a lot of great young drivers come through the program at that point. But as that USF 2000, this particular level started to develop, this is where drivers could come out of karts right in, or maybe a school series right in and run USF 2000. Well, this series has got so competitive. The drivers from Europe, from South America, from New Zealand, Australia were coming over. The level of competition got so high that it really kind of stepped itself away from being a really good place for young karters to move into. So we elected to start USF Juniors. It's around 30 to 40 horsepower less, a little bit less of a race car. It's allowing the drivers to kind of jump into that level first before they move to USF 2000. And I think we'll see in the next couple of years as it develops, the drivers who do well in USF Juniors are going to debut in the top 10 as opposed to maybe 15th or 16th. When you move from USF Juniors to USF 2000, you're a legitimate championship winner right out of the gate.
It's amazing to see the development of these drivers. And if you're here with us in St. Petersburg and you happen to catch other events throughout the rest of the season as the year is just beginning to get going, you see the progression that drivers make as well as they get used to racing on street circuits, as you mentioned, lined with concrete barriers on each side. For a number of them, they've never done this before. So it takes a little bit of bravery and understanding how to get closer and closer to the walls to maximize speed without actually brushing them.
Yeah, we really try to tell them in this opening session when the track is very dirty, as we know. It's obviously windy out there, so it's going to throw the car's balance off a little bit. Give yourself a little bit of room, like maybe 2 feet. You don't need to be right up against the wall in the opening session. Just start getting comfortable. And again, for these drivers, only 4 sessions this weekend. 1 practice, 1 qualifying, and 2 races. So you cannot afford to make a mistake, get yourself at a wall, especially in a practice session. You want to run the entire time if you possibly can. Right now, things just starting to dial in right now. Mac Clark, that young driver who won USF Juniors last year, as I had mentioned, the Canadian out of Milton, Ontario, Canada, currently P1 with a 116.7, but very early in the run here right now. Elliot Cox from Indianapolis, Indiana, in the Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Development, number 67. The Drive Planning sponsored car is now worked up into 2nd. Lockie Hughes now running in the 8th spot. 9th is Zach Ping. 10th is Simon Sykes for Pabst Racing. 11th is now the 15-year-old Nikita Johnson. Then we've got Sam Corey right there as well. Trey Burke, Andre Castro, and Jorge Garcias rounding out the early top 10. A great field of 21 drivers, a mix of returnees from last year, Todd, and a lot of brand new drivers, because to be honest, the top 10 drivers have moved on from 2022. So a lot of brand new drivers into the program here, and being told that potentially a driver's gone off in turn number 8, and maybe Nicholas D'Orlando, and I think it's not a wreck. I think potentially just a technical issue right now for D'Orlando, who has gone off the racetrack. So indeed, right now we have Clark up top, Cox in 2nd, Hughes 3rd, Ping and Sykes rounding out your top 5 right now.
Red flag has all the drivers returning to pit lane to have their teams chat with them and assess where they are. They will retrieve that car that has gone off, we believe, in turn number 8. Haven't really had a chance to discuss yet some of the trickier parts of this 1.8-mile circuit here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Everybody focuses on corner number 1 because it is big and wide and inviting, heading into that first right-hander, but then also it gets a little tricky in corners 2 and 3. You have that combination of corners right after corner number 1. 6 is an area where we've seen some interesting developments at times, and as mentioned, we've seen a couple of incidents right now in corner number 8.
And this is tough. Again, I believe potentially Nicholas D'Orlando, I think maybe just going off simply because of a technical issue right now. I don't think he's got into the wall. We'll find out for sure. Yeah, it sounds like he's just potentially stalled it in turn number 8, so they'll try to get that car refired to get him back out, because it really is crucial for the drivers here at USF 2000 to get as much track time as possible, and being told by race control that the number 8 machine actually getting rolling once again. He'll get back to pit lane, and we'll go right back to green flag. So luckily we didn't lose too much. We're going to be losing maybe 2 minutes here, and they'll get these drivers refired.
Good to have them retrieve that car quickly, get it rolling as mentioned. They want as much green flag time as they can to learn about this track, this bumpy street circuit at times, although with the test at Sebring, they may be one of the few that suggest the streets here in St. Petersburg are a little smoother, because that Sebring circuit is very bumpy, especially in these USF 2000 cars.
Yeah, that was kind of the feedback we got from a lot of the drivers in our spring training test on Monday and Tuesday, that it is a little jarring out there on the track at Sebring. Of course, we'll be back there with all 3 series of the USF Pro Championships the weekend after the 12 Hours of Sebring event. Looking forward to that race, to see the USF Juniors get things underway for the first time as well. But again, drivers get a chance to come in here, really, if you will, kind of just some reconnaissance laps, installation laps, as the NTT IndyCar Series would do. So the drivers, you can see, will be rolling back out here momentarily, back out onto the racetrack to get things underway.
In a sense, that's almost a blessing, is that you do want to get a few laps in, and it gives you a chance just to communicate with your team a little bit. Here's what I'm noticing. Here's what I'm feeling in these first few laps. Is this what we expected to get from the car in these first few laps here on the streets of St. Petersburg? And communicate, maybe these are things you should look for in the remaining time in this session.
And for rookies, those first couple of laps, maybe not quite at speed, are going to connect what they saw at the track walk. Yesterday, between 3 and 4, drivers all walking around the track, and all the different series having a chance to kind of walk around, get a feel for the curbing, where the walls are, maybe where the braking zone is. Now they're able to get onto the racetrack for those couple of laps there, and everything they just saw when they walked, they were able to connect with what they just saw on the racetrack. So that actually might have helped them to a certain extent, as they're able to kind of press the reset button, take a deep breath, and go back out on track.
The other thing that they will have noticed in that track walk, and they're applying now, is the different surfaces here in St. Petersburg, because like many street circuits, it's not all the same compound of asphalt around the track. There's concrete, there's patches, and those are things like challenges that drivers will have to deal with.
Indeed. It's all about the visual, too. You're going through, there are some areas that are very tight. The back part of the racetrack, turns 8 and 9, obviously, a very tight double right-hander. They've got to get a feel for going through there, and remember, these guys aren't sitting up in a big car. They're lying down, essentially, so the level of the visibility is so much different than it would be for you if you're in your car, your SUV. So they're literally having to pick up all those cues. When you're rolling through the double right 8 and 9, you can't see anything on the other side. You're just coming around waiting to hopefully pick up some kind of a mark, maybe on the barrier on the outside, on the fence, whatever it may be. It's just tough. And look how narrow it is coming through here. As I said, a tough part of the racetrack. They'll roll through here, back into the double apex right-hander, then onto the back straightaway.
Elliot Cox currently running second in that 67 car, and how good is it to hear the name of Sarah Fisher-Hartman back involved in open wheel racing once again?
Yeah, they've been working with Elliot for a couple of years. The great thing, you bring it all kind of full circle. Andy O'Gara, who is Sarah's husband, running that program. They also own the track and have really revitalized the track called Whiteland Raceway Park. It's a karting track. I think it's the oldest essentially consistently running kart track in North America. They've done a full makeover on it. They just literally did a big extension on the racetrack. Elliot Cox racing karts there, connected with them, and they're going racing right now to work their way up. It's a single car team. I wish it was a 2-car team, but Elliot's been looking really good. And a brand new sponsor as well, Drive Planning, that has an office down here in St. Petersburg. So everything really working well for that team. And he was really good at spring training at Sebring too. So I think he's got a good mindset coming in, just 15 years of age.
amazing that you think about these drivers, and we talk about them. Yes, they're racers, but they're teenagers as well. They're high school students, and some of them are a little bit older. Some of them are college or university students. But this is what they do on the weekends, as opposed to playing sports or where they come to the racetrack and race professionally, if you will.
Well, and they are athletes. That's the thing, right? They're not playing football, hockey, baseball, or basketball, whatever it may be. But these guys are in the gym like crazy. Of course, they're balancing their schoolwork. But you got to be in the gym like crazy. You look at a lot of these drivers. I love to see it when they first come in. Maybe they didn't take fitness quite as seriously. They do a full season, and when they come back the next year, you know they've been in the gym all winter because they bulked up, because these cars are very physical to drive. There's no power steering in a Formula car like this. You're literally having to manhandle the wheel in all these tough corners.
Talking to Matt Clark a little bit before he got down here to Florida in the last week or so, and he said, like, I've got to get to the gym. Like, he was really focused on some extra training prior to the spring training session that you have, and of course this first race weekend. It's important for these drivers.
Shot here of turn number 1. This will be a lot of action at the start. You can see how wide that corner is. That inside line down the bottom is very enticing when it opens up, but it's going to be dirty. The paint's down there. That's where we've had a lot of issues where drivers have seen that opportunity to the bottom, try to dive to the inside, and there's just no grip down there. We end up getting contact. We talked to our drivers quite a bit about just not diving to the bottom of the racetrack, especially at the start on cold Cooper tires. Otherwise, things are going well so far. Simon Sykes, the Pabst Racing number 22 on top here with a 1:15.303. Sam Corey for VRD Racing currently second. Matt Clark for D-Force now in third spot. Zach Ping for VRD in fourth, and Lockie Hughes for Jay Howard Driver Development rounding out your top 5. Then it's Andre Castro, Chase Gardner, Nikita Johnson, Gordon Scully, and Trey Burke. A lot of action right now.
Just under 13 minutes remaining in this first practice session, only practice session for the USF 2000 series. As you mentioned, they'll be back for qualifying, and then it's a couple of races through the rest of the weekend as well. The other opportunity to learn is, and you pointed out through corner number 1, that it's wide and it's inviting, as we did see 2 cars kind of go through corner number 1 side by side, but you will not want to go through 2 and 3 side by side. So you're going to figure out who your competition is, how you want to handle that, and how you want to approach if you're side by side with another runner.
In turn number 2, there's a big curb that comes out, so it's kind of a 2 combination, right? You're kind of getting into that curb, but then swinging back to the right-hand side, as you'll see coming through here. Then, of course, a little chute into the very tough turn number 3 as well that leads down here to turn 4. This is a 4-5 combination, and we have a driver who's overcooked a little bit and potentially into the barriers. There is, I believe, Elliot Cox getting through, but a driver has gone off. Coming in, locked the brakes up very likely in turn number 4. We've seen that before. And indeed, the flag, I think, coming back out here on start-finish again. So an issue with the driver has gone off the racetrack. We are red flag again. So hopefully we'll get this cleaned up quickly. The AMR IndyCar safety team out there quickly, and that is one of the biggest benefits. And let's take a chance to talk about that out of the gate here. In the connection that we do have with the NTT IndyCar Series is the opportunity to work very closely with the AMR IndyCar safety team. And indeed, it looks like 2 drivers actually got together. You got it. I'm just going to throw, I don't know if we have a replay or not, but I would bet a driver probably went in there. One driver on the outside, the driver on the inside maybe locking it up, with the driver on the outside with nowhere to go. That looks like potentially one of the future Star Racing entries, either Andre Castro or Trey Burke. Pulling away cleanly. Let's see if they can get this other driver fired up. So it doesn't look like we had a bunch of contact. They just kind of locked it up. And there's front wing damage. Whatever driver there was front wing damage with that pilot. He'll bring his way back into pit lane. We'll get to see them when they come back around. But listen, these are young drivers that are pushing very hard. They obviously want to get themselves up front. They're trying to learn this track as quickly as they possibly can. Here's a replay here. So there you have it there. Essentially a couple of drivers fighting to the inside of turn number 4. And we're going to get a look. Here's the other as they come through here. Let's have a look at this. There you go. Yeah, that simply was the driver on the inside, didn't want to give it up, tried to go down the bottom, and when you go down the bottom like that, it's dirty. When you go down the inside, to make the corner, you have to brake earlier because you can't keep the same corner speed because you're obviously a lot more shallow on the entry. So if you're on the inside, you have to brake earlier. That driver didn't do it and was not able to make the corner. Indeed, the driver coming down here, Trey Burke, the number 58, lost the front wing, as did the number 14 of Nikita Johnson. So that was, I believe, Nikita Johnson who had that. No, Nikita's in the 17. The 14 is, I believe, Sam Corey. So both those drivers pushing hard into turn number 4, and that has brought out another red flag here. Still a little bit of time left. Hopefully we'll get rolling and get them another 9 minutes on the racetrack.
Quick cleanup, hopefully in corner number 4 with the AMR safety team, and get these drivers back out for more green flag racing. But again, this is part of the learning process for these drivers in this series, in this season, and in this session as well, learning here on the streets of St. Petersburg. As you mentioned, if you're on that inside line, you've got to brake sooner. You're going to make that right turn a tighter radius than you will if you're on the outside of the track and be able to make more of a sweeping turn to carry the speed through that corner, which ultimately you would like to do. And then again, this is the learning process these drivers are going through.
So when you make that move to the inside, that was as I said, Sam Corey got down to the inside of that corner. You got to get the thing wound up enough to be able to make the corner. And Trey Burke on the outside was the innocent bystander there. He was likely trying to think about an over-under, trying to get back underneath, but he couldn't get it wound up either. And there's just nowhere to go. He wasn't able to turn anywhere. They both ended up in the tire barriers and both with front wing damage. They'll get those wings put back on. I'm assuming we'll get back to green flag very quickly. And if you're listening in, wherever you are, you can probably hear the wind whistling because it is aggressive here on a Friday morning.
Yeah, and we've talked about how much the drivers will be feeling that out on track, and depending on where they are on the circuit, if they're coming down to the final hairpin, you talked about it being maybe in their face. It's a bit of a cross breeze on this front straightaway. That's a variable that they're going to have to factor in as well.
Yeah, and Todd, think about them coming through turn 1. There's the wind coming again across from them, essentially from left to right across the car. The minute they start to rotate into the corner, that wind's picking everything up, and it's going to push them all the way through turns 2 and turn 3. So I would bet the car gets a little twitchy, a little unbalanced as they transition into turn number 1.
Quick session that we have with the USF 2000 cars here, but noticing that the lap times are dropping very, very quickly with some of these top runners. Simon Sykes is up on top. He's under a 1:15 already. That's a couple of seconds better than we started with.
And let me just throw this out there. Simon Sykes is a veteran driver. He's never had a chance to run a full season with one of the top-tier teams. Driver out of Atlanta, Georgia, running with Pabst Racing, who, as we know, is a powerhouse in USF 2000 racing. This could be a big year for Simon Sykes, a driver who was formerly part of the Team USA scholarship program. He's a 2-time SCCA runoffs winner. He's won the FRPF 1600 championship. The accolades on his resume are large. His budget, his bank account, not. So here's one of the drivers we've talked about so many times. All the talent, but just no budget to go racing. He's trying to put together what he can. If he's able to get a full season with Pabst Racing, I think Simon Sykes will be a driver who could go for the championship. But behind him, what I find very exciting, I talked about USF Juniors. We started that program so drivers could run in our program, understand the culture of the USF Pro Championships and Anderson Promotions. Our staff, we had our top staff, all of our tech directors, our race directors were all part of USF Juniors last year. 2 of the drivers finishing in the top 4, including the champion, currently 2nd and 3rd on the charts. It's already proof positive that our USF Juniors program works. Nikita Johnson, who finished, I believe, 3rd or 4th the championship last year, currently 2nd. Last year's champion, Matt Clark, now P3.
A little over 6.5 minutes remaining. Green flag has just flown. USF 2000 cars headed back out on track. So what's the approach in these last few minutes? Is yes, you want to see what you can do, but it's also you've gotten through to this point of the session, don't mess up what we've already done.
Yeah, especially for the rookie drivers, just keep getting that consistency, bang those laps out. You want to come in and see your lap time slowly start to fall, but you always want to see consistency, right? Get home, let's not make any mistakes, get a feel, so for when you go out to qualify, this is the new baseline. Drivers who have never been there, their first couple laps on the racetrack, they're going to find gobs of time over the first half of that time because they're just going to keep pushing the braking zones, carrying more speed. At the end of this session, you set a new baseline. So you want to come out for qualifying and immediately be able to do that again and then take that next step forward at 2, 3, 4 tenths of a second. But you have to get the baseline in here. Don't make any mistakes. Don't push too hard. Get that baseline set. So qualifying is when you make that bigger push.
If you can go a tenth or 2 quicker, that's great. Save that for qualifying. Make sure you can run those laps consistently because you're going to have to do it for 20 or 25 laps in a race.
Yeah, indeed. We only have the 1 practice session here this weekend as well. 1 qualifying session. The fastest lap in qualifying set in the grid for race number 1. Your second fastest lap set in the grid for race number 2. Unless you are able to go quicker in race number 1, you can use that fast lap instead of your second fastest lap for race number 2.
We should talk about the tire situation for these cars as well, because we haven't talked about that yet, and that's something that as well drivers are learning how to manage these sets of rubber that they have.
So they're not actually on the racetrack right now in brand new Cooper tires either. They're doing what we call a carryover set that they scuffed in essentially at spring training. you're able to bring a set through from spring training, but everybody essentially goes out and does one lap, scuffs them in, and we're good to go. So they're on those scuff sets of tires from the Sebring test, and then they'll have, I believe, 3 sets of tires for the remainder of the weekend. You know what? I'll have to confirm because we lost one session. We were going to usually have 5 sessions. We're only at 4. I'll confirm whether or not we have 1 or 2 or 3 sets of tires for the remainder of the weekend.
Simon Sykes up near the top of the timesheet still in these remaining minutes as we see a little bit of shuffling that's taking place right now, and probably will through these final 4.5 minutes in this last session. This is everybody's last chance to maybe pop in a quick one at the end.
How do you like this? Sam Corey, the number 14, who got in the barriers with Trey Burke, put a new wing on, came out and went P2. So not worried about the fact that he went off the corner in turn number 5 or 4. He just drops the hammer and goes back up to second. Make that Lockie Hughes now to second. Sam Corey third. Nikita Johnson fourth. Ivagoras Papasavas now up into the 5th spot. Matt Clark 6th. Danny Dzelski up into 7th. Jacob Douglas for Exclusive Autosport 8th. Future star driver Andre Castro now in 9th. And Jorge Garcias now running for D-Force Racing up into the top 10. And you look at kind of the lap times here right now. Top 12 drivers back to Joey Brienza within a second. Then you got to go all the way down to Maxwell Jameson to go within 2/10 of a second, or 2 seconds rather. And then you have Avery Towns, a young driver coming out of the SCCA ranks, who's really getting up to speed, kind of learning the car. He's going to go faster and faster every session as well. This is what we're talking about. This is such a competitive field of 21 drivers this year.
It's amazing. Now down well into the 114s at the top of the field with Simon Sykes, and it's the cars are equal. You can tweak on them and turn them just a little bit, but it's really up to the drivers to determine, and that's where you want as much track time as possible, because every lap you're learning, I can go a little deeper into this corner, I can brake a little bit later into this corner, and that's the improvement that they make every lap.
And all the drivers, of course, learning that the driver with the most experience would be Simon Sykes, even though he hasn't been able to have a full season yet running in the program. So another red flag potentially. Yeah, I think we have another driver who's had some issues. Not sure who it is right now, but that'll end the session right now, I believe, with 2. Again, we'll see this in this USF 2000 program. Drivers pressing hard. Nikita Johnson coming into pit lane, as is the 18 as well. That's one of the other VRD drivers in the number 18 coming into pit lane here. That's Danny Dzelski. So again, red flag flying. Andre Castro rolling down. We're kind of giving you a rundown. Here comes Avery Towns in that beautiful blue Exclusive Autosport number 93. So another driver off the racetrack that'll bring this session to an end. Not quite sure who it was at this point here, but I would expect to be red and checker with only 2 more minutes remaining. I don't see them being able to clean it up and get back on the racetrack.
No, that's unlikely. Unfortunate, but unlikely as well that we've now gone to a 3rd red flag in this brief session. So it's looking like this will be it for the USF 2000 series in this one practice session that we have here today. They'll be back a little bit later on this afternoon to qualify. The USF Pro 2000 will be back to qualify as well. And then it is racing through the weekend. Each of them will race on Saturday and Sunday. And it's interesting to see, again, the progression that what happens through each of the races in these series.
We'll throw this out here. If you're obviously the traffic that we always get after the NTT IndyCar Series Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, hang around, because we have a USF Pro 2000. We're going to have one more race after IndyCar this year on Sunday afternoon, so you don't need to rush out of here, end up watching another race and missing that traffic. Before we wrap things up, let's have a look at the top 10 in USF 2000. Simon Sykes, the veteran driver, almost 0.6 of a second clear. He'll be happy with that. Only driver to go into the 114s. In fact, a 114.4554 for Simon Sykes. Lockie Hughes moving up into second for Jay Howard Driver Development. Sam Corey third. Ivagoras Papasavas in 4th spot, and Nikita Johnson rounding out the top 5. Zach Ping ends up in 6th, Matt Clark in 7th, Jorge Garcias 8th, Jacob Douglas in 9th, and Danny Dzelski wrapping out the top 10. Again, top 17 drivers within 1.8 seconds. Everybody, of course, getting through as many laps as they possibly could. Looks like, I want to say, lap number 12. I think 11, 12 laps for a majority of the drivers, only 7 for Chase Gardner. But they got a dozen laps in the books. They'll be able to go back, pour over the data, and come out again later on today, Todd, for qualifying. It'll be very important for these drivers, because where you qualify obviously kind of changes your entire outset of how you're going to go racing. You know, if you're in the back, you might get more aggressive at the start. If you're up front, all you're thinking about is getting cleanly through turns 1, 2, and 3.
Exactly, and that's another part of the learning process with the USF 2000 series and the Pro 2000 series is understanding and reading the data, overlaying with your teammates if you have them on your squad as well. It's an opportunity. Maybe they're better in one part of the circuit than you are, and vice versa. It's a great opportunity to learn.
Exactly that, and that's why some of the larger teams are able to use a lot more data. Single car team, you got to kind of learn by yourself. We are back on track. I'm surprised we were able to get back out. I'm not sure what the red flag was for, but let's do a quick reset because we are actually back out on the racetrack. That caught me off guard as we only had 2 more minutes remaining. The driver's still on the racetrack right now. We had 2 minutes remaining, as I had said, but no, we're back out and rolling. Simon Sykes still on top, and now we'll get the checkered flag. So essentially back out for 1 more lap around the racetrack. Simon Sykes was on top with a 1:14.454. I don't know if anybody will be able to lay a big lap down here after just a little bit more warm-up time as they'll work their way out of turn number 3. This is coming down to turn number 4. For those of you maybe tuning in for the first time, I'll give you some visuals. Out of 3, long run down to 4. Definitely a prime overtaking opportunity here on the streets of St. Petersburg into that essentially 4-5-6 combination. Big sweeper around turn number 5. Kink it back through. Driver's doing a good job here to bring things home. And again, just wanting to make sure you finish off this session. Oh, there's the driver is slowed, and he's lost a rear wing. That will happen when you get a little wide coming out of those double right-handers and tap the wall. So one of the drivers has made contact. And it looks like some right rear damage as well. That's not what you want to do on a one-lap flyer at the end of a session. All these guys are going to have to go to work. That team's going to have to go to work getting that car fixed up. Not quite sure which driver that is, but damage there, Todd. That's not what you want to do when you're out for 1 lap.
No, definitely. It's almost it's almost worse that we got back to green for that driver who came
right.
out and, okay, we'll just get 1 more lap in, see what we can do. And unfortunately, they really saw what they could do. And the AMR safety team out there to try to retrieve that debris that's out on course, and we'll see who it is when they get back. But again, a team that's got to go and do a little bit of extra work before the qualifying session later on this afternoon.
I was looking more closely at that. I'm not sure whether or not that right rear was damaged or not. But the right rear would have been maybe a spin coming around. Just the rear wing for sure. Unless there was contact between a couple of drivers that got back into his right rear and he got spun around. Nonetheless, we will have an inauspicious end once again as the checker flag flying to end the session. Simon Sykes still P1. Lockie Hughes, Sam Corey, Evagoras Papasavas, and Nikita Johnson, the top 5. Jorge Garcias, I believe, jumping up actually in that last lap. Indeed, he's able to find some speed, goes to P6. Zach Ping in 7th, Matt Clark 8th, Jacob Douglas 9th, and Danny Dzelski in 10th. That was Gordon Scully. The driver had an issue there for VRD Racing. Scully will climb out from that Tatis machine, the USF 22. He's fine. AMR IndyCar safety crew there to make sure he's good. That the VRD crew does have some work to do. You can see this right front off the ground. That's going to lead me to believe that maybe some damage to the left rear. So indeed, he got into the wall, damage to the left rear, lost the rear wing. That's where the car will step up like that. So they'll have some work to do to get him ready to go. Because remember, qualifying, as you mentioned before, is going to happen early in the afternoon.
Qualifying this afternoon for the USF 2000 Series. USF Pro 2000 Series will happen a little bit later on as well this afternoon. So a quick day, a quick bit of action for all of these drivers.
So there you have it, folks. We are underway with the 2023 season of the USF Pro Championships. Again, as Todd had said, a couple of qualifying sessions still to come here today. Make sure to tune in to the live coverage on the USF Pro Championships YouTube channel, or you can jump on any one of the websites, usf2000.com or usfpro2000.com. Thanks, Todd.